So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Call in the Ring. I'm Chris, joined by Mike, and today we're going to be talking about five each of our personal choices that we believe have been overlooked in the wrestling industry as far as WWE's been considered in the men's division. We're only really going back to wrestlers who've been wrestling on the main roster at least from 2010 till now. Nothing prior to that. If they've been wrestling prior to 2010, they're still eligible for this list as long as they've wrestled through 2010 till now. So we're gonna be doing a joint 5. So Mike will have 5 of his own. I'll have 5 of my own. Factions are allowed. So if you feel the whole faction's been overlooked, obviously nothing wrong with that. You can count that as one entry as a total. Obviously we have some honorable mentions. Finn Balor, Samoa Joe,
the Cruiserweight division.
Yeah, the Cruiserweight division as a whole. Sami Zayn.
205 Live.
A good portion of NXT call-ups in general. And
the women's division, except for Charlotte and Alexa Bliss.
Pretty much. And what else is there? Basically the majority of the ECW second reboot.
Oh, yeah, pretty much.
Pretty much, because whatever of them was left into the 2010s, some of them existed up until recently, so we'll let some of them count, at least if they were in the company within the last 3 years as well.
Yeah.
So, Mike, I'll let you start. What's your number 5 pick on the list for wrestlers you currently feel are overrated?
Underrated, you mean?
I mean, correct. Underrated. Underrated. I'm thinking like Vince right now.
Sure. So, my number 5 is a guy who was actually a champion multiple times in the company, had some success to start out.
Okay.
That's Wade Barrett.
Of course.
5-time Intercontinental champion, winner of the King of the Ring, was the first winner of season 1, was the winner of season 1 of NXT, back when it was a game show. Came in real hot with the Nexus, destroyed everybody, and then they ran into that brick wall known as John Cena, and he never really recovered after that. Going back to SummerSlam 2010, where John Cena, his team defeated the Nexus in their first real pay-per-view test, Cena becoming a member of the Nexus, and being the referee for the Randy Orton, Wade Barrett WWE title match, where Cena got fired and then came back every week to bury the Nexus on the regular. Like I said, he had moderate success. He was 5-time Intercontinental champion, but every time either he got some steam behind him, the company didn't want to push him. I'm sure you've heard the news about
World of Sport?
How Vince didn't want him to be Bad News Barrett anymore because it was getting over with the crowd. Oh, yeah. Which is like the dumbest shit.
Because he wanted him to get over as a heel and not as a face?
Yeah, but like, why not just capitalize on yeah. And then, his final run obviously being as a member of the League of Nations, which was just god-awful for everybody involved. But yeah, he had the potential to be a WWE champion, a main eventer. The reason I put him at number 5, though, is because part of it does have to do with the fact that he was kind of injury-prone. And one of the other issues was every time he built some steam up, he would get hurt. But they really dropped the ball with Wade Barrett.
That's fair. My number 5 personally is going to be Zack Ryder. Obviously Zack was the
Ryder Revolution.
Of course, Long Island IZ. Got himself over in the early 2010s, feuding against Dolph Ziggler, trying to get himself a U.S. title shot. Cutting his great promos.
His YouTube show, Z's True Long Island Story, where he was
talking
the internet champion.
Talking about, can't get over, trying to climb over a fence and stuff like that. Like these little inside jokes that just showed his ability as far as being charismatic and being able to connect with an audience, stuff like that. Obviously, Zack was a long tenured wrestler. He's been in the company for about 12 years, maybe I think even longer, probably around 14. I remember he came in around 2005 or 2006 as part of the Major Brothers, teaming up under the La Familia stable with Edge. He's been a multi-time tag champion. He's been U.S. champion once, having beaten Dolph Ziggler. And then he got buried after beating Dolph because he wouldn't conform his characters to something that the company
Oh
liked a little
man,
more. So they took the
the
title
Kane
off him.
angle.
Yep.
Brace the hate.
Embraced the hate. He lost his belt to Jack Swagger. He got pushed off the stage by Kane. John Cena
Got
stole his
kicked in the
girl.
balls
Yeah, it was really
at
bad.
WrestleMania.
And it just never got better. We got like the surprise win at WrestleMania 32, where Zack won the Intercontinental Championship ladder match, and just to lose to the Miz the next night on Raw.
Yeah.
It's been very up and down for Zack, and Zack has a lot of talent. He showed it more recently against John Cena in the Open Challenge match they had for the U.S. title back in like 2015, 2016. But they've just
Hasn't done
dropped the
much
ball with
since.
Zack. Yeah, and it's not
He
his
went
fault.
back to NXT for a while. Was a hype bro.
Yeah, came up with Mojo. They broke that team up because they didn't know what to do because Vince doesn't like tag teams, and he's just suffered. It's very sad considering that Zack's a very talented wrestler, and I would just hope to see that he would just get a push that he deserves and actually like be allowed to maintain that push. That's the one thing that's holding him back. The company just doesn't believe in him.
Oh yeah, for sure. And as a side note to that, I was at Survivor Series 2011, where the crowd chanted "We Want Ryder" all night. Going as far as to when The Rock came out after the show and was cutting a promo,
They booed
the
him.
crowd was chanting "We Want Ryder" at The Rock, and The Rock had to acknowledge it and be like, "Oh yeah, he's a cool cat." And they had all this momentum with Ryder, and they just dropped the ball.
Pretty much. It's a damn shame, honestly.
It is.
But
it really is.
I just hope that as a turning point for Zack. I know he's in the later half of his career now. He's been more or less injury prone in this back end of his career, dealing with leg injuries and stuff like that. And
Yeah.
just hope that if he has maybe 2 or 3 years left in him, that they do something with him worthwhile, and that he doesn't end up being one of these long tenured wrestlers that just don't get a push, and we just always wonder about what could have been. So
Oh, yeah, for sure.
yeah. But on to number 4.
All right. Yeah. So my number 4 there is Tyler Breeze.
Okay.
The guy was insanely over in NXT, putting on great matches. If you've watched the WWE Network documentary, Breaking Ground, kind of centers around him getting called up to the main roster, and they talk about how he was so close to getting fired until him and Xavier Woods came up with the male model gimmick for him. He, much like a guy like Velveteen Dream in NXT now, he really played that role incredibly well, and was super over in NXT. I remember, watching takeovers and being at the first takeover Brooklyn, where half the crowd is chanting "Tyler's gorgeous" and the other half is chanting "No, he's not." He just put on great matches at NXT. I always go back to the Fatal 4-Way between it was him, Neville, Tyson Kidd, and Sami Zayn for the NXT Championship. Just great matches, and I really felt like they could have done a lot with him on the main roster. But he came up, got put in a feud with Dolph Ziggler, which is often a death sentence for most people as soon as they come up. He got paired up with Summer Rae, and after that, it kind of just went downhill from there, and he became a jobber.
Pretty much.
The rumor behind that was that he apparently asked to leave a show early one time.
Yeah, and then they did a callback, and he didn't show up because he was already approved.
Yeah.
And he got buried for it. Even though apparently they said the person that he spoke to that he asked to leave early was somebody under Vince that didn't clear it by Vince. So the argument should have been made that the guy who cleared it should have been the one to get in trouble, not Tyler. But, company doesn't work like that apparently, because it doesn't make sense to hold the ones who create the situations accountable instead of the ones who just get caught up in it.
Of course not. And, lately, the last couple of years, he's been in a tag team with Fandango. I mean, they had some success. They had the Fashion Files. And got over pretty well. They buried that. They had a tag title match against the Usos where the crowd was super hot for them. And I think had they picked up those belts, they could have maybe done something with them there. But then that kind of just amounts to nothing. And as of this recording, he's now a singles wrestler again because Fandango's hurt. But I don't have much faith to actually do anything with him.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. Sadly, it's kind of frustrating seeing how much time was put into Tyler Breeze just for nothing to really come out of it. As you stated before, he never really, even in NXT, they never did anything with him proper. He never won anything while he was down there.
Sure, he never picked up the NXT title or anything like that. But I had hope for his main roster run, and it didn't go so.
No, definitely not. My number 4 is actually Dolph Ziggler. Speaking of death sentence, the man came up in the Spirit Squad. He was probably the only member of the Spirit Squad to actually survive. Even though, I know the current White, the
current
caddy.
White, he was the caddy.
I don't want to remember these days. I'm trying to start from something that's not as bad.
Do you remember Kerwin White's catchphrase?
Yes, if it's not white, it's not right. Oh God, I hated Kerwin White because it's just so bad. They just try to convince everyone that a Mexican man was a white. Yeah, it was just whitewashed Chavo. It was really fucking weird, and it was it was so bad. It was so fucking bad.
And then he became a male cheerleader.
And it was also fucking stupid because they had Chavo do this not too long after Eddie's death. But meanwhile, Rey was being pushed as world champion. And, God knows I love Rey Mysterio, but it's a damn shame Chavo didn't get a push he deserved. That's another story for a different day, though. But yeah.
But back to the male cheerleader.
Of course, male cheerleader. He won the tag titles as part of the Spirit Squad. They free-birded it against... what was it, against Big Show and Kane?
Kane and Big Show, yeah.
Yeah. And then they ended up feuding with DX. DX effectively buried them. They were part of like
OVW.
Yeah, and buried them further. I think the turning point for the Spirit Squad feud, as far as what killed their gimmick overall, was when they lost that 5-on-2 handicap at Saturday Night Main Event, and they never came back. Yeah, that was it. And then Dolph came up a few years later as an underling for Vicky. He won the world title, lost it off of a technicality.
In the same night,
in the same night. And then won it later on in 2013. It had to be Mr. Money in the Bank. 2013 cashed in on Alberto Del Rio to, in my opinion, is arguably the best cash-in of all time. A lot of people say it's Seth Rollins' WrestleMania.
I think it's...
But...
Yeah, I think it's close between those two.
But for me, it's Dolph because the anticipation was there and he didn't cash in at Mania. And then the Raw to WrestleMania crowd is almost as important as the WrestleMania crowd, especially around 2013 till now. The last 5 to 6 years have been arguably made that Raw almost pay-per-view levels of important as far as like crowd participation. And they popped huge for a heel to come down and cash in on Del Rio.
I mean, and having been at WrestleMania 29, watching the awful match between Del Rio and Swagger, and the crowd was chanting for Ziggler to cash in, and he didn't. For him to cash in the next night made it all the more better.
I don't know. It just went downhill from there. He got the concussion at the following match. He never won the title again after that, and then he buried himself, unfortunately. Which granted, the company can't do anything about that, but it still happened. He suffered from a lot of issues. He got put in a horrible storyline with Rusev and Lana and Summer Rae, and he's basically been the gatekeeper for the company for the last 2 years to bring guys up.
Like I said, he feuded with Breeze. He feuded with Nakamura.
Mm-hmm. I'm pretty sure he feuded Bobby Roode.
Pretty much anyone that's come up from NXT, he was the gatekeeper for it.
Yeah, and it sucks.
He had that good feud with The Miz, where he did pick up the IC title for a month.
And then he lost it to The Miz because Vince wanted him to fight Sami Zayn and not Dolph, because he wanted a heel versus face match, and for some reason thought that completely just ruining someone's push would be fine, because at least he'll get the match dynamic that he wanted, which is super stupid. Sure. But then again, it's Vince, so Vince just does what Vince wants. Unfortunately.
Definitely.
But yeah, either way, I'm sad about that. It was a huge opportunity that was missed multiple times. They had the storyline with the Authority, where Dolph was the one who helped get rid of the Authority, even though Sting overshadowed him because Sting debuted. Yeah. And then
they did nothing with that.
Then they turned him heel and did absolutely nothing with that. And now he's in a storyline tag team with Drew McIntyre, and he's currently Intercontinental Champion. So I mean, the show is still better than D&D Train, so I'll take what I can get. But still,
definitely.
I just hope something better comes out of Dolph, because this sucks. That's not even his fault.
Okay, so on to my number 3. I'm gonna go with Damien Sandow.
Dark horse pick.
Dark horse pick for sure. I was definitely into Sandow when he first came up, when he was
intellectual savior of the masses.
The intellectual savior of the masses. I thought it was an interesting gimmick. It was something we hadn't seen in a while. I mean, the last time we had seen that gimmick was Lenny Poffo as the genius, going back to the late 80s and early 90s.
Yeah.
He was getting a lot of heel heat. Thought it was great. They paired him up with Cody Rhodes. They were Team Rhodes Scholars for a while, and then he won the Money in the Bank contract, and I was like, oh, this is dope. Like he's a good heel. He's entertaining. Not the best wrestler. He was solid, but he got the job done. And much like other people on his list, he ran into the brick wall known as John Cena,
Of course.
and became, I believe, the second man ever to cash in and fail to win the championship. Cashed in on Cena for the World Heavyweight title. He beat Cena down before the match. He had his own custom Money in the Bank briefcase, the leather case, and he kind of never recovered from there. He kind of just did a bunch of random things. He was dressing up, impersonating people for a while after that.
He won the tag title with The Miz.
Yeah, and then he found success as Mizdow, being the Miz's stunt double, mimicking everything he did. And he got over, and him and The Miz won the tag titles for a brief period of time. And then they parted ways, and there really wasn't a blow-off. Their blow-off was that Sandow eliminated The Miz. Yeah, in the Andre the Giant Battle Royal. But he didn't even win the Battle Royal himself. He just eliminated The Miz.
And then lost to Big Show. He was runner-up for that year.
Yeah, he lost to the Big Show. And then he became a Macho Man impersonator. He was Macho Man Dow.
Yeah, and Axelmania.
And then he just got released. And I think it's a shame. He was a guy that had a ton of potential. He kind of got over everything they gave him. I mean, that stunt double thing could have went really bad really quickly. He got that shit over. So I think it's a real shame that they didn't revert him back to the intellectual savior of the masses or something along those lines to get him back to where he was.
You also forgot about the time he used to dress up as different movie characters and celebrities and lose matches.
Oh yeah, he came out as Magneto and shit, and he dressed up as Vince one time.
Yeah, it was very bad.
It was bad. It was really bad.
It was
and unfortunately, his wrestling career since being released hasn't gone really well. He went to TNA for a while. That really didn't amount to anything.
He wrestled for What Culture, and then he disappeared from there as well.
Yeah, so it's unfortunate. I wish they had done more with him, but
you do know, to my knowledge, I think he's currently retired from the industry.
Yeah, I heard he wanted to become an actor.
Yeah.
So much luck to Sandow. Aaron Stevens, I think is his name.
Yes.
Much luck to him and his acting career going forward.
But it's a shame too when you think about it that this man is effectively retired from the industry because of how badly his career went, and it wasn't even his fault.
It wasn't even his fault.
Like when you got guys like Punk talking about like going at bat, pitching the ball, hitting the ball out the park, running out there and catching it and bringing it back to shove it down your throat. Sandow did that, and he never got pushed for it.
You always hear about the brass ring and how you gotta get the brass ring, and a lot of guys do that. Sandow being one of them, and they just didn't give a fuck.
Oh, speaking of brass rings, another honorable mention that we neglected to list: Cesaro. He definitely deserves to be on the honorable mentions list. He has not been utilized properly. He's definitely world championship material. He's definitely main event material. I don't care what Vince says. He definitely deserves.
I mean, and it's a shame when you look at Cesaro. He's only held one mid-card title once. He was U.S. champion once.
Yeah, and since then he's only been tag champion multiple times.
Yeah, I mean, and credit to him and Sheamus.
On to my number 3. I have effectively my dark horse pick, which is Ty Dillinger. Most of you won't remember, but Ty Dillinger was not initially Ty. Ty was actually Stan.
He was Stan, and then he was in ECW for a while as Gavin Spears.
Yeah.
So that was the thing for a little bit.
Oh gosh, was this around the same time that Braden Walker came up?
This was that around the time that Braden Walker came and did knock-knock jokes.
Knock knock, who's there? Braden Walker, and I'm gonna punch your teeth in. Oh god, that man got released so fast.
He lasted like 2 weeks.
He lasted long enough to tell the joke.
Basically.
But yeah, Ty Dillinger was literally around for a cup of coffee in ECW. He was around for about a year and change, and then when it shut down in 2010, he didn't get released. He just got regulated down to developmental, and he stuck around there for a long while, like a really long while.
He went to FCW, I think.
Yeah, and then when FCW, because I think by the time he came there, they had just picked up FCW and they had stopped using OVW as developmental. So
Yeah.
he ended up in FCW for a fairly long amount of time, and then ended up transitioning into NXT once that came up. He was not there for the stupid reality television show version. He was actually there for the wrestling version of NXT.
Do you remember what his first gimmick in NXT was?
I honestly don't. I'm not gonna lie.
He was originally part of American Alpha. It was him and Jason Jordan that were a tag team.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I don't remember that.
Before Chad. Yeah, him and Jason Jordan had an afro.
Like I remember little stuff about like him having issues with his tag partner and losing matches, and Chad Gable coming up to him and like saying like, I can help you out if you let me.
Yeah.
I remember
So
that.
Ty
I forgot Ty was his partner.
Yep, before he was the Perfect 10.
That was around the same time we had Roman Reigns dressed up in fucking like Gucci suits with like
As,
stupid watches.
What's his name? Leaki or some shit?
Yeah,
like that?
Leaki. He was like
Yeah.
the fucking time is money wrestler.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're going back to Ty. Ty had a very, very moment centric NXT career, but that was kind of it. He didn't win any championships down there.
Nah.
I'd say probably the biggest moment of Ty Dillinger's career so far, which is very sad considering the man is very talented and he actually can cut a pretty good promo if you give him the opportunity to do so, and he's proven that he can make the 10 gimmick work. But that being said, the best thing he's probably done in his time in the company was probably when he came out at number 10 at the Royal Rumble and helped eliminate Braun Strowman. That's
On main roster, sure.
Yeah.
I mean, he's picked up some key wins at NXT. His win over Eric Young might probably be the biggest one he had in the cage.
Sure, but
his
I
feud
feel
with
like
Bobby Roode was solid, but
I feel like those don't matter as much because like there wasn't an end goal to those things. They were just like mid-card feuds that at best he just benefited from. But
it's a shame
they
that
never
he
pushed
wasn't
him
around
over.
with the North American Championship because I think he probably would have picked that up.
Oh, definitely. I don't see why
so
not.
it's
I definitely don't see why not. He was more than deserving. He's still on SmackDown Live, even though no one fucking knows it because they barely use him.
Yeah,
And every time he's
man.
been on SmackDown Live and he's competed for a title, which has always only been the U.S. title, he's effectively
He's there to take
lost
the pin.
very, very fast.
He's there to take the pin.
Yeah, basically. He was pinned by Baron Corbin when Corbin won the belt back off of AJ. He was pinned by AJ when he challenged for the Open Challenge. No. He submitted very quickly to the Calf Crusher. He wasn't pinned. He just submitted in like seconds, which is, arguably worse. But, yeah, it's a shame. It's a damn shame. most of the people listed on this, it sucks because they have a lot of potential and they just never were able to realize it, and it's not something that they could have really done anything about because they've just kind of helped toe the company line. They were punished for it.
Yeah.
But on to your number 2.
Yeah, for number 2, I got a question for you though.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what day it is?
It might be Rusev Day. I'm pretty sure.
Every day is Rusev Day.
I'll have to check my calendar.
My number 2 is Rusev. I get right now he's the number 1 contender for the WWE Championship, but we all know that's just a placeholder feud for the time being. They haven't done much with this guy. He came in, had a hot start. Lana was super over when he came in.
He was undefeated for over a year.
He was undefeated for over a year, United States champion. Comes out at WrestleMania 31 on a fucking tank.
Yeah,
like
with an army.
Amazing. Yeah, and then much like other entries on this list, he ran into John Cena, and that was kind of the end. He lost the U.S. title to John Cena. Then he and Lana got engaged, but that was in the midst of his feud with Ziggler, where she was with Ziggler and he had Summer Rae as a manager, so they both got buried for that. And then I thought they were going to pick up steam with him again. He won the U.S. title off Kalisto and had a solid run with it, and then ran into John Cena 2.0, and dropped it to Roman Reigns. And then kind of did nothing with him from there. Up until, relatively recently, he got the Rusev Day thing over with Aiden English, which apparently Vince McMahon has not been happy about because he didn't want it to get over. They gave those guys, a couple tag title shots. They didn't pick up the tag belts. He was in the United States Championship match at WrestleMania. He didn't pick it up there. He's not gonna pick up the WWE Championship,
And
and it's a shame.
don't forget that they've already accidentally, quote unquote, leaked the match for SummerSlam, which is Samoa Joe versus AJ. So not only have they put us in the mindset that he won't win, but they've actually told us that AJ is defending at the next fucking pay-per-view against Samoa Joe. And it's probably going to happen, because most of the time when those things leak, they usually happen. And the company always tries to toe this line that's not happening, and it doesn't work, because they always end up getting caught lying. So
yeah, and it's unfortunate, because he's probably the most over guy on SmackDown, might be the most over guy in the company, with the whole Rusev Day thing. And they just don't want to do anything with him. They don't want to push him. They don't want to do anything.
What man have you ever known has gotten over selling calendars?
Nobody.
Exactly.
But you know, we've seen this before. It was the reluctance they had with Daniel Bryan, right? Daniel Bryan got the yes chant over and got himself over with all of that, and they didn't want to push him. And I mean, they eventually relented, and he got his main event. But they just seem to have this fucking problem with pushing Rusev, even though he's entertaining as a face or as a heel. He's a really good wrestler. You know, they didn't help him get over. He got himself over, which is a problem, obviously. But it's, once again, unfortunate. They just don't want to do anything with him. And after this WWE Championship match, I don't know where he goes from there, but it's definitely down the card.
Oh, well, yeah, unfortunately. Which fucking is irritating, because it's like, where do you put him if you push him down a card? Cause
my hope would be that once Nakamura picks up the U.S. title, maybe he'll feud with Nakamura for it, but I wouldn't be surprised if they just don't do anything with him.
Yeah. it's just frustrating when you think about, like, the man was undefeated for a fucking year. And it wasn't against, like, bullshit matches either. Remember, the man he beat for the title was Sheamus, and he made Sheamus pass out. Like, they had to make Raw go, like, overtime so they can have him beat Sheamus down and make him pass out to the Accolade, and then separately bring him out the ring and make him tap out to it again. Like, they were pushing this man huge, and then it's just changed their fucking mind.
Yeah. Oh, no, let's also not forget, much like I mentioned with Wade Barrett, he was also part of the League of Nations, which was fucking terrible.
Well, you know, that's what happens when you don't give Vince what he wants. You don't acknowledge that you're not attractive enough to date your fiance, because that's the reason why Vince put him in that stupid quadrangle storyline in the first place. Allegedly, he thought that Rusev wasn't attractive enough to date Lana, so he wanted to break them up in real life by putting them in a stupid love triangle.
I feel like maybe Vince should watch some Cultaholic videos and, you know, hear Ross talk about handsome Rusev, but, you know, whatever.
You know, it's but it's Vince. What are we really expecting out of this? Like, there's a reason why people like us make lists like this, because we're fans who think these people get overlooked, and Vince just doesn't give a fuck. It's all about. Also,
before we move on to your number 2 real quick, there's also the time that he got heat because he cut his hair.
Oh yeah.
There was that one as well.
There was that one. He got heat because they were like, "How dare you not notify us that you cut your hair?" And granted, I guess I can see that one a little bit, because it's like, it was for like creative licensing, because they were trying to make a new action figure, so it was bad timing. But but they buried the shit out of him over it. So but then again, you know, Titus got almost fired for grabbing Vince's arm during Daniel's retirement speech. So.
That is very true. It's very true.
So a lot of the times the punishment don't fit the crime. And then again, you know, stuff like Wrestler's Court also exists. So you know, it's just one of those things. Like, it's a very egocentric, like, petty-driven society that kind of suffers from a lack of clear thinking at times, and it's very sad. It's very sad.
Yeah.
But as for my number 2, it's the guy that your boy stole, you know, stole the Day system from. It's the OG New Day member. It's Kofi Kingston.
All right.
Obviously, Kofi's been around since the ECW extension back in like 2008. He had that huge push against Randy Orton. That was his first main event push, and due to 1 or 2 bad calls, he got buried. Obviously, you know, there's that infamous match where he fought Randy, and he goes on to tell Kofi how stupid he is because Kofi missed timing for an RKO spot, and he just buries him to Cena, buries him to Vince. Cena takes his side, and obviously,
Of course.
common thread. Cena, it's common denominator. Might be good for the company now, but he wasn't so good for the talent back then. And it wasn't that long ago he still wasn't good for the talent, so.
That's for sure.
But either way, '09 was Kofi's year. Luckily, the man has the humor in his heart to see it. Remember the time machine skit that they had with the Raw villains? Yeah, where he goes back to '09 and he's like, "Oh, '09 was my best year. Don't take me back. I want to stay here." He knows what it was. He knew that was the best he was ever going to get out of what he was doing. It was a shame.
That's when he was still Jamaican.
Yeah, and then Triple H tried to bury him off of that because apparently his mom got called by a reporter who asked him about his accent because he got caught once.
I heard about that.
He got caught once talking with a regular accent, and they were like, "Oh, are you Jamaican?" And he's like, "Yeah, of course." And then they called his mom, and his mom's like, "No, we're from Ghana and we speak regular English." And they ran that story, and he got buried over that as well. It was around the same time.
Yeah.
It was.
I definitely heard him tell that story before.
It's fucking stupid. It's so stupid. But yeah, Kofi's been a multi-time not world champion, a multi-time tag champion, multi-time U.S. and IC title holder. If there was a cruiserweight belt, he definitely would have held that. And it sucks because Kofi had world championship contender potential, and they did nothing with it.
For sure. I mean, if you look at him on paper, and you look at the title reigns he's had,
he's a Hall of Fame champion.
And you'd look and say this guy's not underrated, but like you said, he had world champion potential, and they never capitalized on it.
Kofi has always been known for his spots at Money in the Bank and the Royal Rumble, as well as
it's one of the it's one of the things to look forward to in the Royal Rumble every year.
Oh yeah, that and his
what crazy shit is he gonna do?
Yeah, or his Elimination Chamber runs. Every now and again, he gets put in Elimination Chamber and does something crazy. Kalisto tried to top him more recently with the monkey flip, but.
Speaking of Elimination Chamber, do you remember the year that Edge attacked him before the match and took his spot?
Yeah, and then won the title after he lost the title for the other brand. It was the world title. Cena was champion.
Yeah.
Yeah, he lost his world title, entered in Kofi's spot, and then they eliminated Cena when it was Jericho, Edge, and Mysterio left against Cena. I remember that, and then Edge ended up winning against Mysterio.
Yeah,
it's sad.
But as we've talked about privately, Woods has come out saying that his goal is to make sure Kofi wins a world title. So let's see what happens.
I'm more than willing to endorse that.
Oh, for sure.
But as for number one, should we just go with it together because it's effectively the same person or same people effectively.
Sure. Yeah.
So the number one as a collective is effectively the Wyatt family.
That is the Wyatt family. The original Wyatt family minus Braun Strowman.
Yeah. Because Braun as a wrestler is nowhere near underrated.
Certainly not.
He was originally very, very bad as a wrestler. He was very green, but he trained under Big Show for about a year, and he grew very fast. And now he's arguably one of the best wrestlers.
Universal champion.
Yeah, he's one of the best wrestlers on the brand right now.
Yeah.
And so Braun obviously gets a pass for this. But the people that we're referring to is obviously Bray, Luke Harper, and Eric Rowan. A la their 2013 debut. They debuted almost Sanity-esque in the sense that they came up, they were made to be a big deal. Yeah, attacked Kane. Things didn't work out too well, and they ended up losing. Bray ended up losing the Inferno match against Kane. And that was his big match.
Start.
Yeah, it's not a good start when you start losing matches to Kane. Out of nowhere, when Kane's in his twilight of his career, he's in his mid-40s at that point.
Yeah, I mean, especially because this was a guy that was in Season 2 of NXT, was in the new Nexus as Husky Harris, got this reboot with this gimmick that, once again, another gimmick that we hadn't seen in a really long time. Last time we saw it was with Waylon Mercy in the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
And it was different. It was interesting. Okay, now you have a cult leader and a guy who's really fucking good on the mic and is a good wrestler for his size. Bray's not a small guy. He's pretty big. So, for a lot of the stuff he was doing, you didn't really see it all that much. And to have him lose his first match, not a great way to start.
Yeah, it was pretty sad. And then if you think about the fact that It took him what, about 4 years to win a title, but Harper and Rowan won the tag titles in NXT at least. Even though you can make the
Yeah.
argument that they suffered as well, because when they came up, they had a bunch of arguable match of the year contender tag matches against
with
the Usos on
Yeah.
pre-show matches of all
Yeah.
things, and they
Yeah.
were tearing the fucking house down, and
Yeah.
they never won the tag titles. It took them becoming the Bludgeon Brothers in 2018 for them to
Well, no,
have
before that they Harper and Rowan, but Harper and Bray won the tag titles before that together.
Sure,
When they freebirded it with Orton.
but I was thinking more of a collective as far as like the Wyatt family as a whole.
Oh,
So I
sure.
felt like
Yeah.
because Rowan wasn't there, like sure it still does count, but Rowan didn't get that because that was like Harper and Rowan were always the tag team out of them, and then Bray was just like the single star. Like he's basically the equivalent of what happened now if the New Day probably would break up. They wouldn't separate.
Yeah.
They would just like one guy would be a single star and the other guys would be a tag team because it'd make the most
Probably.
sense. So it's like Rowan wasn't there because he was out with injury, so they had the Wyatt family storyline, as you said, with Randy Orton joining. And Bray had just won the world title off of John Cena Elimination Chamber, and then lost it 2 weeks later at WrestleMania, and then he didn't even get a rematch for the belt. He had a House of Horrors match, which was one of the worst matches ever, as far as like more common memory would dictate, considering how much stupid shit went down. And then he couldn't even win the match on his own. He had to win the match from an assist from Jinder Mahal, of all people, who ended up going on to win the world title. And then it's just frustrating when you think about like Bray Wyatt was at a point in his career where he would cut these promos, these intense, passionate promos, just to lose to whoever he was fighting with.
Yeah,
like,
I mean, and the biggest losses for him, I mean, obviously the first one being, once again,
Kane.
Much like other people on his list.
Oh, Cena.
Well, sure, Kane, but the big one, Cena.
At WrestleMania 30.
Losing that match at WrestleMania 30, it was not great. And, Bray didn't necessarily need to win that match, but his whole point was like that.
He definitely need to win that match.
Here's the thing. He did need to win the match. However, his whole thing at the time was, I'm going to get Cena to show you who he really is. And that's when he gives Cena the chair, and he's daring Cena to hit him with a chair.
Oh, you mean
had they
hate
gone
light?
that route?
Yeah.
Had they gone that route, at least there, Bray could have been like, you know what? I didn't win the match, but I won the war because I showed all of you the person that Cena really is.
Sure,
and that was a mistake. And then the next year, him losing to The Undertaker, who didn't show up for the build at all.
Nope.
He shows up for the match and beats Bray. Now, granted, do you want to have The Undertaker lose 2 years in a row at WrestleMania? Probably not, but if you want to build up this guy who could be the next Undertaker,
you probably want to have him
beat The
win.
Undertaker.
Yeah.
You have him beat The Undertaker.
Hell, I would have preferred him to beat the streak over Brock if we're gonna be, just candid about this shit.
Sure.
Like
and then, and then they did a bunch of weird shit where they split the Wyatt family up, put them back together, split the Wyatt family up again. The first time they split them up, Harper got a little bit of a push, who, in my mind, with Braun, is probably the best big man worker in the company.
Probably.
He got that IC title for about a month, had a great match with Dolph Ziggler.
A TLC, the ladders match.
Yeah, and then they never did anything with him after that, up until now with the Bludgeon Brothers shit. But, not a good look. They just really blew an opportunity with these guys.
Pretty much, and it's gotten to a point where now it's like there's no real way to rehab Bray Wyatt. Like even now when he's in the Deleter Worlds and they've split up yet again, there's very little that we can really do to salvage these guys because the Bludgeons don't feel like a big deal, even though they're arguably the best tag team on SmackDown. Because now the Bludgeon Brothers are Harper and Rowan, and it's stupid. Like they sacrificed a good gimmick to make a weird gimmick, and then they made it a big deal until WrestleMania, where they changed their mind. So now they're just another big man tag team that's hard to put down but can be beaten, and it's just stupid. It's just really fucking stupid. It's a shame. Granted, if you want to make the argument that Rowan's the weakest Wyatt family member, sure. But it doesn't mean that he hasn't been underused. He's been underused greatly. Bray's been underused greatly, immensely. Harper's probably had the most successful career out of the three of them. Even though Bray's won the world title, I would still say Harper's had the more successful career because he's won more matches when it's mattered. and he's suffered from being in positions where, yeah, think about it. You've had John Cena, you've had Roman Reigns, you've had the tease one off with Triple H, you had him cower to Brock Lesnar, you've had Bray Wyatt effectively look like an idiot for 3.5 years. He hasn't felt like a big deal since 2015.
And it doesn't help that he cuts these promos and then loses every match. He cuts a promo about how he's gonna, he's gonna destroy his opponent, and these rambling cult promos and shit, and then he loses every match.
Yeah.
The only time it was done well was their feud with the New Day, because Woods was legitimately afraid of him.
Yeah.
And Woods was changed by interacting with him, and I felt like that should have been a thing for everybody that comes across him, because he's like this maniacal cult leader.
But that was what it was supposed to be.
Quote unquote.
That's what it was supposed to be.
And they only did it one time.
And then it wasn't even intentional. They did it because they were trying to capture the hype from the final deletion. They couldn't
the Wyatt compound shit.
They couldn't even fucking do the right thing. They couldn't do it because they wanted to. They did it because TNA had a better tag team storyline than they did, and they got jealous. It's so stupid. It's so fucking stupid. Like I don't care. Like, every time we see guys like this who are overlooked and underused get pushed, like majority of the time you can attribute it to something outside that made WWE force their hand, or it's a genuine accident. I'm not going to say they never make an effort to push these guys, but it's so few and far between that when it happens, it doesn't matter. Like, Bray Wyatt right now in the Leader world, to me, feels very stupid. Granted, when he came back at WrestleMania and helped Matt Hardy win the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal, it felt fine. It was good, it was expected, and the payoff was there. But then their gimmick got very stupid very fast, which didn't help because Matt's gimmick had already been suffering since Jeff got injured back around SummerSlam. So Matt was already just floating around this like muck and mud, and Bray just joined him. And they've been trying to salvage both their gimmicks, and it just hasn't worked. The crowd doesn't care. Matt Hardy and Bray Wyatt had a match around, I think, TLC last year, right before the Rumble, and the crowd is just fucking doing the wave and throwing beach balls around. Yeah. And Matt's only thing he can do was just to ape up the crowd so they would try to contribute to the match, and they still didn't. They just cheered because it ended. That's sad. That's really fucking sad.
Yeah, no, it definitely is.
All things considered, we just hope that these guys, whether it's here or otherwise, get another opportunity to reestablish their career and become the wrestlers that they deserve to be. This isn't necessarily a hit piece in WWE. We're not trying to point out how badly they've booked these guys, even though they've booked them really shittily. We're trying to make a case that these guys need to be treated better, and they need to be respected for what they've been able to bring to the ring in spite of what's happened to them in the ring as a result of their horrible booking. Now, whether that's reappropriating the writing staff, as most fans would allow you to believe, because most fans fall off, and they've continued to fall off WWE. Currently, I think Raw had about under a 2.4 overall viewer for their viewership, which is horrible, because usually Raw floats around 3 million viewers, which is horrible compared to about 12 years ago or maybe 15 years ago when they used to float around 9 million viewers. So you see how far they fall when they have no competition, and a lot of these guys who could be huge stars elsewhere get brought in and suffer as a result because saturation happens, and then we just end up with guys like these who don't get anywhere. So it sucks. It genuinely sucks.
Yes, it does.
But with that, guys, we're gonna wrap it up here. As always, please like, share, and subscribe. If you like what you've seen here today, please follow us on our Twitter as well. We like to keep commentary regarding Raw, SmackDown, NXT, takeovers, and pay-per-views. Sometimes 205 Live gets pushed in there as well. Regarding ideas we have going forward for the channel, there are some things we want to do as far as booking videos, more prediction videos, more reviews, and stuff like that. Any feedback that you guys have for us will be much appreciated. And
absolutely.
We're just trying to grow step by step, and every little bit that you guys provide to us helps. as a side note to that, though, please follow us on Twitch independently of that.
Oh, for sure.
Over here, I am TheAfroGamer on Twitch. My link will be in the description box down below, as will Mike's.
All the
Follow
links
him
will
at
be down
Cinnamon
there.
Boys.
All of
All
them.
the links
Yes.
are in the box down below.
Click on all of them. Like them all.
Please,
Tell your
please.
friends. Tell your mother.
Tell your mother
Tell your
friends.
mom I said what up.
Yeah, exactly.
With
Put
a
one
wink.
out for people, you know? Do it for us. But as always, keep in touch with us. Keep tabs on what we have going on. Let us know what you guys like. Let us know what you don't like. We're building every day. And, you know, don't be afraid to call in the ring.